Music from DJ KO featuring Talib Kweli, Torre, and John Robinson with Someday, the Lords remix. And from the album The Easy Truth, that was Apollo Brown and Sky Zoo with Jordans and a Gold Chain. This is the Urban Suite, KSYM 90.1 FM. Please stay tuned. A lot more going up for you tonight. But first, this message. KSYM 90.1 FM, the major Cheryl Metal with you. This is the Urban Suite, and as promised, tonight's special guest for our open mic session, it is Chris Conde. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So happy to have you here, man. I mean, Cheryl and I have been watching you around town, killing the stage.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been good. San Antonio's been really good to me, and yeah. So that's all I got to say about that. But
Let's get started. Native of St. Town?
I was born in San Antonio, Wolford Hall.
You was at Lackland.
Yeah. So I was born there. My dad worked on Kelly Air Force Base. So
Okay.
both my mom and my dad were active duty. They got divorced and then remarried other people who were active duty.
Wow.
And so my dad stayed here, and then I moved with my mom and my stepdad, and we kind of moved all over the world.
So just military.
Yeah, military brat, and so, I lived in D.C., Guam, Kansas, Florida, went to high school in Turkey and Japan,
Word.
went and graduated in Japan, Okinawa, and moved to Maryland, got involved in hip-hop out there, and then moved down to San Antonio in 2008. And I've been here ever since and calling it home. So.
Those experiences moving from place to place, how did that shape you and especially with your introduction to hip hop once you got into Maryland?
Yeah. I think you can't help but I think it's as, living overseas, especially places like Turkey where there wasn't an Air Force base. So it's you kind of have to you're forced to be aware of your surroundings, and you kind of have to really pay attention to culture. And so I kind of grew up with this just having to pay attention to people and I don't know, I feel especially since hip hop is very I don't know, kind of about the culture, I feel I've had an inside, or just kind of an insider look at, I don't know, there's sociology involved in it, and being able to look at culture, and I think in a unique way that other people that wouldn't, which isn't necessarily my I didn't choose to grow up overseas. It just happened to be my experience, And I used to be really arrogant about that, oh yeah, I got to travel and do all that stuff, but I wasn't paying the money, for that stuff. But I think that unique experience granted me a unique perspective to be able to look at culture differently and look at America a little bit differently and myself in relation to it, which I think it was beneficial in the long run,
Yeah. So you said introduction to hip hop in Maryland. In what aspect?
I've been writing poetry since eighth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was, writing, I was working for a church, and I was their worship leader for a little while. And I met a friend who was this trance DJ named Casey. His DJ name is Breakfast. And I was over at his house, and he had a mic, and while he was mixing and stuff, and I was like, yo, let me freestyle over some stuff. And he's like, okay. And so I just freestyle for 15, 20 minutes over this trance beats. And he hit me up the next day and was like, yo, we should do something together, do a little project. And I was like, sure, why not? I was 18. And so I started writing I actually started trying to write verses, and we showed our little group of friends, and they were like, yo, you can write hip hop, dude. And I was like, okay. And so that was kind of not necessarily the local Baltimore area hip hop, but it was just my first introduction into actually being a part of it and actually like starting to write it.
Yeah.
You know, so and it kind of that was it. I kept writing. You know, I kept writing hip hop. I kept writing, you know, verses and bars, and you know, now I'm here.
So we are going to continue our conversation in just a bit, but we want to get into one of the tracks from your new LP.
Right.
Yes. Diamond Daggers.
Okay.
Love it.
Thank you.
Okay, what went into the production, the recording of this particular track?
So, half of this record, Growing Up Gay, was produced by my good friend Angel Mark Lloyd. Her and I were friends back in Maryland. She lives in Chicago now. She gets write-ups in like Rolling Stone and Pitchfork magazine and stuff.
Really?
She's an amazing producer. But we've just stayed in touch, and we're both just kind of like weirdo like artists. Like I don't know, like we've just stayed friends, and she'll send me stuff, or I'll hear something she's doing, and then I'm like, yo, like let me rap on this, and she's like, okay, tight, you know, and so she let me use it, and I had written this really like intense, in your face like verbal assault. And I thought it really worked really well, you know, and it's very like, I don't know, it's very cocky, you know, and I kind of like it, you know, so
Yeah.
it's very like hip hop, and you know, tongue in cheek, of course. It's like everyone's got that's like, yo, I'm the best, whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's what hip hop is.
Yes.
But you know, so this is definitely like one of those, like this record kind of has a lot of that, you know. We could talk a little bit more about that later, but
yeah,
this is definitely like one of the staples of that, like I'm here, I'm claiming my seat at the table in hip hop, and whether you like it or not.
Yes, indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Conde, this is Diamond Daggers. Hey, yo, keep it locked. This is the Ever Suite KSYM 90.1 San Antonio College Radio.